So when you think gaming PC, most people think these really expensive, full RGB, RTX, 13th generation Intel, massive gaming PCs to run some of the more modern games. What if I said to you, you don't need that? I would like to show you how I built a gaming PC capable of most games for about $150 AUD. And it'll run a fair amount of stuff. I'm pretty impressed with it. So let's wait and see what you think. I'm going to show you how I built it. So for a price range like this, I don't actually recommend custom building. What I did was bought this pre-built for about $50 on Gumtree. It is a HP Pavilion. Its model number is 570P081A. And it's honestly not a bad little machine. GT 734GB, AMD processor, 8GB of RAM. Without even upgrading or touching it, let's quickly boot it up and see how it runs. As we can see, it's running perfectly here. I'd like to clarify that's not it, that's a separate test bench. As it is, it's already running well. I will say load times are very slow because it doesn't have an SSD, it's only got a hard drive. It's running an AMD A8 9600 Radeon R7, 4 cores, 4 processors, 8 gigs 1 DIMM of DDR4 memory, and an NVIDIA GeForce GT 730. So by no means a bad machine. As it stands already, it's a pretty good machine. It's by no means amazing, but it's not bad either. But if I try and pull up like Microsoft Edge or something, still waiting. The hard drive's already at 100%. When booting up Microsoft Edge puts the hard drive at 100%, there's a problem. And I'll tell you now that the GT 730 isn't exactly a gaming card. It's not going to run most middle to high-end games. So I think that this bad boy needs a bit of an upgrade to turn it into a proper gaming machine. And I want to keep it within $150 AUD. Now, the two most obvious problems with this PC are a graphics card and an SSD. I think those are the two most obvious. So if we just open her up, there we go. These are our internals. Let's deal with this graphics card first. First of all, let's get this GT 730 out of the way. Pop off this bracket over here. Now, there's only so much we can do with this graphics card, as we've got a 300 watt power supply and no 6-pin connector. Nor do we have enough budget to fix either of those problems. And with that, our GT 730, which is quite ugly, comes out. Why is it bright red? This is the first NVIDIA card I've seen of this shade of red. This looks like it's just flat blood or like tomato. Now we've got a dual slot card here, which does mean I will be poking out this little slot cover that's over here for this card. There we go. And for dual slots, limited space. There's not a lot of space to work with in here. And no 6-pin connector. I've got a GTX 1050 Ti, which admittedly this one I didn't get for this project, but they can very easily be had on places like Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace for $100. Fun fact about this graphics card, it is actually my first ever graphics card. This was my first gaming PC graphics card. It means quite a lot to me. I myself also got it for free as a gift from my parents to help me get into computers. And this thing really doesn't have a whole lot of room to breathe in here. Now, we've got to take it out anyway later on. I didn't think we'd have to do it this soon, but let's quickly take out this hard drive cage. The hard drive we are keeping around for bulk storage. I managed to squeeze them into there. And now we've got our GTX 1050 Ti in there. Be very careful because this is the low profile. So it's nice and small. And still we've barely got any tolerance room between the DVD drive and the GTX 1050 Ti. To build in a case like this in some pre-builts, you really need a small PC. Some people may be saying, great, now it's just the SSD. But there's no budget left. 50 on this, 100 on the graphics card. Where am I pulling this SSD from? Well, this is a very valid option for things like free M.2 SSDs, because this board does have an M.2 slot, it's just not used. Pulling them from old laptops. This is something I pulled from an old laptop of mine. I got the laptop for free, and there are plenty of options for getting free laptops that don't really work anymore for things like storage like this. A lot of local e-waste or local tips will allow you to go through and get a few devices for free, if you ask them nicely. A lot of people just have broken laptops that they might be willing to give you. There are plenty of options for something like this. So M.2 storage in this that I got for absolutely free. I don't think it's cheating because anyone can do it and it's not necessarily hard to do it. There we go, we got our M.2 attached. which, as far as I'm aware, resolves those two major issues. If this was just a normal build that I was just doing for a friend, I'd do things like repaste the CPU and stuff like that. It's not within the budget. We've used our budget. Thermal paste isn't free. I don't have a good trick to get that free like SSDs. So for now, we're going to close this bad boy up. And let's test her out. Every techie knows that you do a test run before you put the side panel back on. It's like a rule. As far as I'm aware, apart from the side panel, that now has a better graphics card, better SSD. CPU and RAM's already not bad. Let's go test it. Let's go make sure it's all working. I've got it down here again. Let's boot it up. It's definitely got power. Definitely spun to life. Let's see if we get a video signal. We do. That's a good sign. That's in fact a very good sign. Suddenly me thinks it's automatically gone into the hard drive again. The hard drive is its boot drive. Because it's a pre-built, and even though I'm changing what the boot drive is and I'm doing a fresh install, we should still be fine. Oh, but my M.2 is not appearing. That's not a good sign at all. This means that my initial theory was right. I thought it was fine, but I was like 3% sure that this SSD was in fact dead. I think I've got another spare one lying around, but just switch out my SSDs again. That's the one thing we're taking from things like old laptops and stuff, like I said. They're not exactly all reliable. Yeah, methinks this M.2 is dead, though I do have a spare. Let's go get the spare M.2. This spare M.2 has a slight problem. It's a bit smaller than the last one, and this actually doesn't have a screw for it. So what I'm going to do, because this is just for testing sake, I don't actually intend to use this PC long term. I have now just got the M.2 just sitting in there. The M.2 itself might just be dead. The M.2 slot on this thing might just be dead. That's a problem with builds like these. Because they're using older and second-hand parts, even though theoretically, as far as I'm aware, these should be working, sometimes they just don't. It's older second-hand tech, so it's a bit touch and go. And so, just for the sake of this, I'm going to just plug my SATA SSD in and show you using that. So I've been tinkering with it a little bit, because this is how I had it set up just next to it, because my test bench is there. But as it would turn out, I'm just an idiot. Even though it's a B and M keyed M.2 slot, it doesn't support NVMe, it's only SATA. And both of the two that I've got are NVMe, I think. And I don't actually have a SATA one just lying around. So I'm now trying to just set up a just a standard SATA cable SSD. So the plan still works. Hypothetically, you could still do this. I just completely janked it up. So I've managed to get this all working. I ran it overnight to just download some software and everything. As far as I'm aware, this thing is now fully working. Let's run 3D Mark. After running Time Spy, we got 2,157. CPU score 1,664. Graphics score 2,277. According to Task Manager, everything's responding. 8 gigs of memory, the CPU's going. It claims to have 10 compute cores, when now it's got 4 cores. It's got 4 cores and 6 graphics cores. So look, it's 10 compute cores, but it's not a 10-core CPU. On that note as well, when I got this computer, for some reason, both the VGA and the HDMI were blocked off. I didn't do that. That was how it came with the computer. I'm running a graphics card anyway, so I don't really care, but it's odd either way, right? For some reason, it's detecting a USB. It's detecting a USB as a disk, but it's formatted for 0 megabytes. And all I've got plugged in the back here are a keyboard and a mouse. Nothing in the front. But let's see if this thing can game. First up, we've got a more CPU-intensive game like Minecraft, which admittedly is chugging a bit. GPU's at like 10%. Everything else is flooring it at 100. But that's on high settings. So if we turn down to render distance closer to 7 chunks, that's still respectable. it already looks much nicer. It's already averaging about 30. Which, look, isn't the most amazing, but it's by no means bad. And if we turn it down just a little bit further so it doesn't look the most amazing, the chunks aren't rendering too far, but we've got a clean 60 FPS. It's very playable. Because out of a budget machine like this, you've got to understand, you're not exactly... I'm willing to admit, you're not going to get the most 4K, you're not going to get the fanciest gaming ever. It's not going to be the greatest experience. But for a budget build, it's not bad. Let's run something that's pretty light on both of them. Portal 2. This is a pretty old game, so it should be fine. Portal 2 is running at an average of 120 frames. Portal 2 is running quite easily. The thermals aren't bad either. Most of the cores are around 80 to 100% because it's pushing itself to 100 frames. And the thermals are staying at 47 degrees. GPU is at 48. Something like Portal 2 that's older runs really well. So some basic and older games will run plenty fine on a machine like this especially. Now let's run something a bit more intensive. We've got Assassin's Creed Unity on high, which the GPU is starting to feel it a little bit, but for the most part the CPU is tanking a bit. It is on 100%, we're getting about 30 FPS on average. Let's try turning down the settings a little bit. We've now turned the settings down to low, and it's definitely playable. I don't mind it. It's about 30 FPS, so some high-tech gamers, wow, might find this unplayable. But a budget machine is a budget machine. I don't see myself getting anything better for $150. Maybe if I saved up, I would change out the CPU, as I've already found a different, stronger CPU online for $120. But for the most part, it's not by any means a bad gaming build. Is it the greatest? No. Is it cheap and gonna do the trick for most middle to low end gaming? If you're just trying to play like Fortnite or Minecraft with your buddies, or play some like lower games like Stardew Valley, Cult of the Lamb, that sort of stuff, it's easily gonna do the trick you need. If you're looking to run something like Cyberpunk and everything, you're not gonna get that for $150, even if you tried. But for the budget, I think that this is a pretty damn good build. It's definitely playable. And you could do even better if you just chucked in like an extra $100 for a better CPU. This one's already pretty good, but if we had boosted it just a bit. Anyway, that's my $150 gaming machine build. Let me know what you think of it and what you would have changed in the comments below. But I think it's a pretty good build for what it is. Cutting it fine with the graphics card there. Look at that clearance. Please make sure to like and subscribe. I'm a small and a new channel, so that would help out a ton. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to check out my other stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.